It's December 2003. The Return of the King hits theaters, and the world loves it.
It's particularly good.
Critics praise it, and audiences obsess over it. It received 11 Oscars, a world record.
That still only counts as one!
The final movie closes off one of the most anticipated trilogies in cinematic history. These films didn't just do well, they reshaped fantasy filmmaking. But that was more than 2 decades ago. Cinema evolved. Technology got better. Even what audiences expect from fantasy changed. After Peter Jackson's success with The Lord of the Rings, Hollywood started investing heavily in fantasy. In fact, even if you take the combined costs of all the Lord of the Rings movies and adjust for inflation, it's still not even half the costs of the first season of Rings of Power or the Star Wars prequels. So, with the movie industry now pumping out billion-dollar titles left and right, we are left with a question. Do the Lord of the Rings films still hold up today, or do they get worse every time you watch them?
Which is, of course, ridiculous.
Well, here's my answer. No.
Shall I describe it to you? Or would you like me to find you a box?
In fact, we're going to talk about how the things you'd expect to age the worst are exactly the things that make these movies better every single time you watch them. And the first reason for that? Tolkien. The Lord of the Rings wasn't just a book Peter Jackson happened to like. It was already one of the most successful and influential works of fantasy fiction when it came out. It carried an epic, immersive story with fully realized characters, intricate plots, and a world so rich it practically demanded repeated exploration. Middle-earth isn't just a setting, it's a living, breathing universe. Languages, myth cycles, cultures, histories, all of it has layers that reward repeated visits.
I think I'm quite ready for another adventure.
Even background elements have depth, so every rewatch reveals something new, whether it's a tiny detail in a prop, a line of dialogue, or a piece of lore you missed. And make no mistake, fantasy, as we know it today, exists because of Tolkien. Even if you've never liked The Lord of the Rings, if you've watched or read any fantasy titles, you've seen something influenced by his Middle-earth. And because Tolkien gave Jackson such rich material, Jackson didn't try to redo the books. Instead, he tried to make them work on film. That meant cutting stuff that would slow the movie down. For example, Tom Bombadil is a real scene stealer in the book, an odd, wooden forest kind of character who rescues the hobbits and sings nonsense for a while, but he doesn't move the main plot forward, so Jackson left him out. The movie still keeps the feeling that the world is full of strange, alive corners, but it doesn't stop the story to show all of them. Jackson kept lots of small book moments too, the little lines, looks, and gestures that make the world feel consistent. Where Tolkien can write pages of backstory, Jackson turns that into texture on screen like a worn banner, a carved doorway, a robe that's been repaired a dozen times. You don't read Gondor's history, for example, you see it. Some characters got tweaked for clarity or drama. Faramir is played as more of a test for Frodo. He's given a moment of temptation that plays better in a 2-hour scene than the subtler version in the book. Aragorn's return is staged as a big ceremonial payoff. The films make his rise to kingship visually obvious, so the audience feels its weight. But not all cuts were as popular. The most notable being the Scouring of the Shire. The book spends time showing the hobbits dealing with the aftermath, how war changes home. Jackson skips that, and you can argue he missed a chance to show the grown-up consequences of the story. Many say it would have slowed the film, but the ending is already infamously long, taking 30 minutes from the ring being destroyed to Sam returning home. So adding more to the story here is something many say would do it good. But all of these are a director's choices, not mistakes. Jackson reshaped the book to speak in film's language, cut where cinema needs speed, add where images can replace pages, and tweak characters so their arcs read instantly on screen. A huge part of why these films still feel alive is how they were physically built. New Zealand wasn't just a shooting location, it became Middle-earth. The massive miniatures, called bigatures, were built by Weta Workshop, the New Zealand team behind the props, armor, and creature work. Add the prosthetics, real armor, and over 1,800 custom-made hobbit feet, and suddenly, this world feels touchable. That kind of practical work doesn't age the way early CGI does, which is why places like Rivendell and Helm's Deep still feel real 20 years later. Weta Workshop's pre-production was insane. They designed everything with layers of history in mind. Each object carries its own story, and when you notice one of those details on a rewatch, it hits in a way you didn't get the first time. Then there's the sheer grind of the shoot. They filmed all 3 movies back-to-back for over a year, sometimes running 7 units at once. That kind of marathon is almost unimaginable, but it created a continuity and coherence that makes the trilogy feel like one long, unbroken journey rather than 3 separate movies stitched together. And of course, Gollum. Motion capture had been done before, but not like this. Andy Serkis's performance combined with practical touches made the character feel alive and emotionally real in a way that still holds up. You can watch Gollum now, 20 years later, and it hits the same beats because it's acting first, technology second. The point is, making these films wasn't just directing or editing or writing. It was a full-scale act of creation, building a world and filling it with life. And that is exactly why, even 2 decades later, the movies feel as tangible, as present, and as thrilling as they did the first time we stepped into Middle-earth. Peter Jackson had a weirdly rare skill. He could jump from something huge to something small without it feeling sloppy. You'd go from a wide shot of armies lining up for war to a quiet moment on a character's face, sometimes in the same scene. Think of the moment before Helm's Deep kicks off, where it's all massive walls and storm clouds, and then it cuts right back to the fear in the soldier's eyes. A lot of that balance comes from the cinematography by Andrew Lesnie. The camera doesn't just sit there, it moves when the story needs energy, and it slows down when the emotion needs space. When the Fellowship first walks through Lothlorien, the camera almost floats. During chase scenes, it's handheld and urgent. It feels intentional instead of flashy. The lighting is another reason the films haven't gone visually stale. There isn't one trendy color filter slapped over everything. The Shire looks warm and soft, Mordor looks harsh and stripped of color, Rivendell looks clean and bright without feeling fake. Each place has its own visual personality, and that keeps the movie from feeling locked to one specific early 2000s style. And when the movies go big or weird, they earn it. Stuff like Legolas sliding down stairs on a shield or surfing an Oliphant isn't random chaos. It's built on real stunts, real sets, and a visual flow the movie has already taught you by that point. You accept the unreal moments because everything around them feels solid. And all of that world and visual balance only works because the people inside it feel real. Elijah Wood carries Frodo's slow physical and emotional wear down in his posture and his eyes, not just in dialogue. Viggo Mortensen's Aragorn feels physically tired in the fight scenes, but steady in the quiet ones, which is why the character still feels grounded instead of cartoony. Many say Samwise is a big reason the story holds together on repeat watches. Sean Astin plays him like a real person, not a symbol. On the first watch, you notice the big speeches. On rewatches, you start catching the small choices, the way he hesitates before leaving Frodo, and the way he looks scared and determined at the same time. Gandalf works for the same reason. Ian McKellen plays him warm and patient most of the time, but when he snaps into authority, you feel it instantly. And we have to mention Gollum again, but this time it's less about the tech and more about the performance choices. On rewatches, you start noticing how precise it all is, the way he shifts between voices, how his body language changes mid-scene, and how every movement reflects what the character is thinking. And once those performances lock in, the music quietly takes over more than you notice at first. Howard Shore's score acts like emotional memory. You hear a few notes of the Shire theme and your brain already knows how to feel before the scene even starts. That's not accidental. He wrote specific themes for places, people, and ideas, and they repeat in slightly different ways as the story changes. On rewatches, the music starts doing more work than the visuals. You notice how the Fellowship theme sounds strong and hopeful early on, then thinner and more fragile as the group breaks apart. Nothing on screen explains that shift. The really impressive part is that it doesn't feel old. A lot of movie scores get tied to the trends of their time. This one doesn't. It plays more like a classic piece of music that keeps giving scenes new emotional weight, even when you already know what's coming. The editing in these films is another big reason they still work. Jackson and his team knew how to balance the big, epic stuff with the smaller, quiet moments. You don't feel rushed from one scene to the next, and the story always flows naturally. Even in the battles, the focus isn't just on explosions or fighting. You can see what the characters are feeling, and it makes everything feel more real. On a rewatch, you notice little things you didn't before, like a look between characters or a small reaction in the background. The endings are handled the same way. The big plot threads get wrapped up, but we also see how the characters are changed by everything they've been through. Frodo dealing with his journey, Sam coming home, the goodbyes at the Grey Havens. Those moments hit differently every time. The reason The Lord of the Rings still works so well on a rewatch is simple. It's built on real story and real craft. A lot of modern movies don't age the same way because they lean too hard on flashy effects or trends. CGI-heavy battles, overused green screen environments, Or a film that's basically a series of look at this cool trick moments can feel impressive at first, but go back a few years later and the illusion starts to crack. Some films try to be relevant with topical jokes or messages. That might grab attention when they first come out, but a second viewing often exposes how thin the story actually is. Even big-budget tentpoles that pour billions into digital polish can lose something. Without real textures, real props, or real stakes, epic scenes can feel empty. A battle may look perfect, but it doesn't hit the same way because nothing in it feels grounded. All of that craftsmanship is part of why The Lord of the Rings keeps finding new audiences, but a big reason it stays alive is the fans. People don't just watch these movies once. They talk about them, analyze them, argue over details, and go back to notice things they missed the first time. That kind of curiosity and care keeps the world and interest fresh. The films themselves also make it easy to dive back in. The extended editions, the behind-the-scenes features, the books, the games, the music, there's always something new to explore. And the universe isn't frozen in time either. Although they might not be so popular, new series and movies continue to expand Middle-earth, giving both longtime fans and newcomers reasons to return. Finally, there's the way these films entered culture. Winning Oscars, premiere nights, shared theatrical experiences, those moments cemented them as more than just movies. They became events you remembered being part of, and that sense of occasion makes coming back to them feel special even decades later. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.